Hello, everybody. Happy September 17th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I've got a good one for you. Josh Howard from the Rare Reminder. He's a journalist. He's been with them since 2013. This will be his 7th year. Josh, it's great to be able to have you on.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Just to let you know right up front, I think I've been watching your podcast over the last about 4 months. I discovered it. And the platform you've given to players and coaches here has been pretty phenomenal, especially during these times. And it's nice to know that you can talk sports even during these kind of rough times we're going through.
I really do appreciate that. It's great to be able to be on the ground, I guess you could say, in a sense, because I'm a broadcaster by first, but not being able to broadcast, I wanted to keep going and try to help out and do what I was doing when I was broadcasting.
Sure.
So being able to do this and kind of give the players, not knowing that we would be where we are right now with what was, you could say in a sense, high school football, and we'll get to that in a second. I think being able to get the voices out of the players and the coaches like you do with your writings, and I've read your work for the last couple months, man. You do a fantastic job, and the Rare Reminder is really, I think they're grateful to have you.
Thank you. I hope so.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure they do. I can almost guarantee that. But let's get down to business. Before we talk about what's been going on with high school football, I just want to give the people back home and people who are watching this kind of your background a little bit. You're from Alaska. Never would have picked that out. Now, you moved to Connecticut in what year?
2005, I moved down here to finish up my degree. Yeah.
Now, was there any sort of kind of like adjustment for you coming from Alaska to what is Connecticut? It's a little bit warmer, just a little.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the wind chill still is pretty bad here in the winter, but yeah, the winters are just so long in Alaska. Beautiful during the summer. I mean, I try to get up every June or July. You get about 22 hours of daylight, so you can start rounds of golf at about 10 at night. But there was an adjustment. People said I had an accent when I moved here. I think it was because I'd leave the G's off my talking and that type of stuff. But that's kind of an Alaska thing. But not much of an adjustment. I fit in fairly nicely, I think.
Now, you said you also coached and you officiated. Now, was that in Alaska or in Connecticut?
Yeah, I've done both. So I coached football after I graduated high school for a couple of seasons. I coached basketball down here in Connecticut. I worked for the Boys and Girls Club, so we had a couple of travel teams that I coached for, and I've officiated both. Actually, I've officiated basketball, and I also did some PA announcing for the high school when I was there for the sports I didn't play. So I've kind of come at the writing aspect from a couple different angles, because writing isn't my actual background, but I think that the knowledge of sports have kind of given me what writing might not have.
And what got you into the writing aspect? Because I know for certain people, like when I asked the same question about, if I'm talking to a player and I say, what got you into playing football? I've heard some say it was my parents. I've heard some others say it was, I just one day was told by a coach, hey, you want to play football? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So what got you into writing? What kind of captured you into being able to put your great words on paper?
Well, so my brother and I were big sports nuts growing up. So what we would do a lot of times, we would watch the games and we'd either announce the games together or we'd write recaps of the games afterwards of the professional or college games. So we always had a passion for kind of, talking sports and writing about sports. And then after moving to Connecticut, I met a couple of people. I'm actually related to the owner of the Rare Reminder, and I submitted a writing sample, and I became one of the sports writers at the time, and now I'm the only sports writer there. So I kind of got into it, just kind of just winging it, and I've kind of learned some stuff as I went along, and learned some stuff from the other writers in Connecticut, so that's helped a lot. And it's been a process, but I try to approach it from a different angle. Sometimes I like to get, growing up and playing in high school, it was always neat to see your name in the paper or your teammates' names in the paper. So I kind of come at it from that approach, kind of like from a player's approach, what they would like to see in the paper. And I like to put a little bit of different spin on it, and heavy on the sports, and positive news that comes out of sports.
Now, when you write about, the sport that you're writing about, or just writing in general, I know each writer, just like in baseball, each pitcher has a different motion, has different pitches. For you, are you more of the serious, I put everything on paper, or, where are you as far as a writer? Because the one thing I've noticed is your writing is very, very elegant, but also too the way that you're able to put the words. It's almost like I was at the game, and you're telling the story.
Yeah, I try to approach it really through the eyes of an athlete because I did play. Now, that doesn't always come off in my writing, but I do try to approach it like I want somebody that wasn't at the game to actually visualize the game that was there. Because with high school athletics, as they're very rarely, unless it's like a state championship game or tournament, televised on, so people can see at home. So if all you're doing is reading the box score, creating a box score on the sidelines and then writing about it, anyone can look up that in the paper and see that. But if you can kind of tell it through the eyes of someone that was there for someone at home that might not have been, that's kind of how I try to approach it, because that's what my background's been in. It's just playing the game and then trying to visualize that and tell that to somebody at home.
It shows in your work. I've said that many, many times early on during this interview, and I think just keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
I'm a big fan of yours, seriously.
Thank you.
No problem. Now let's get back to, let's get down to business, because that's why I have
Sure.
you on. I've been going back and forth with you and various coaches and players about the decision, finally, we think, by the CIAC and the DPH saying that football at least will not be played in the fall. But, and there's a lot of things to kind of dissect here and kind of peel, and we'll try to get to as many, as much as we can, time permitting. But
Sure.
I think the first and foremost, the biggest part is that the CIAC, I heard that they were coming out on Thursday, which would be today. They decided to do it on Wednesday to say that football would not be played 11-on-11 contact. When you saw the news, what was your reaction?
I was a little surprised that they met early. It was almost like they tried to do it in the shadows a little bit to try to beat everyone in the press to it. I was a little surprised they did it early. I mean, the process has kind of dragged on so long that I don't know what another day would have done, or if it was the right move by them. My approach to this from the beginning, and again, I like to approach stuff through the athlete's eyes. I was critical of the CIC back in March when they canceled the winter tournaments, and some of the people weren't very happy with me at the time because of but my message then and my message now has always been the same. It's if you can send kids to school, they should be able to play sports, especially if you can do both safely. So at the time when they canceled the winter tournaments, they were still sending kids to school. Now obviously April changed a lot of things and went into May, and they canceled school. But when they decided to come back in the fall and have kids come back to school, I thought personally it should be all or nothing. Either you come back and you can play sports, or that you don't come back to school. And when they made that decision, the back and forth between the CIAC and the Department of Health and state officials has just been one big, long, drawn-out process, in my opinion. And the fact that they came through Wednesday and decided, that they were going to cancel the season fully, I wouldn't necessarily say it came as a surprise, because of the fact that it's still lingering out there. We still have this lingering football season, whether it's club or whether it's they're going to bring it back in the spring. So I really, to be honest with you, Chris, I really don't think that we have a resolution, and that's really the worst case scenario right now.
No, it's again, you've talked to various coaches. I have as well. And it's, I said this to you before we started the interview. I can tell it looks like they played and coached a full season. You know what I mean? And they haven't even gotten on a field yet because of everything. The season's on, conditioning. Oh, pause. Back to conditioning. Pause again. Season's canceled. Now we may be back on. Oh, now the season's fully canceled. It's like, stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. I mean, I don't know if Coach McGinnon or Coach McKinnon has said anything about players, but I've had coaches in the NBL tell me that their own players said, no, I have to go to work. I need to make money. I can't go to practice because who knows if there's even going to be a season.
Well, and to me, that's part of the issue with the clubs, is because now we have this whole other element to this club football that may or may not happen. And Connecticut isn't used to club football. And you and I have talked about AAU and if that's good or bad. I don't personally believe these AAUs are good for high school athletics, but let's say that they proceed with these club activities for football. This leaves these coaches and these athletic directors and these players that have already been scrambling these last, 4 months. Now they have to try to either put together a town team or a school team. And my biggest issue with that is, and I know varsity football gets, a lot of the press, but are we going to have JV teams? Are we going to have C teams or freshman teams? And if not, you might be setting these players back, another year if we don't end up doing spring football. So I think that it's a bigger mess now than it was even last week. And for that, it's hard to defend the decisions. But on the same token, and I've heard Glenn Lungarini from the CIAC on your show and in other interviews, and I think he genuinely wanted football to come back. I really do. I think he genuinely wanted and he pushed for it. The issue I have is with the Department of Health, and the fact that they have taken football and it's the one sport that they've categorized as high risk. And I've asked this question, and I sent out another email yesterday, and it wasn't the first time that I asked the Department of Health this, to let us know, either the media or coaches, let us know what it's going to take for football not to be categorized as high risk. Because the coaches, the players, the athletic directors, they will all do whatever it takes, or they'll at least know what it's going to take. And quite honestly, if the Department of Health can't deliver that answer, then I believe coaches, parents, athletes should reach out to them, because they're the ones really holding up this process right now. And at least we should have an answer of what it's going to take, and if it's going to be a vaccine or if it's going to be studies from around other states that allow these kids to either play football or not play football.
A lot of questions I've seen from people, rightly so, is, well, they mentioned the metrics. Well, we're at the lowest, I think, in the country. So what do they want? 0? I mean, that's not going to happen. I mean, if you look, and again, I did not know this until I looked up the reopened CT guidelines, and it says high-risk sports right now, because of the phase that we're in, can be played. But here's the question I have, and again, nobody has answered this for me. Why is it different for scholastic sports to play high school players? Why is it different for them to play, but a team from freaking Canada come and play? I mean, again, I'm not going to throw out and, say it could be this, could be that, but something smells very, very bad about this whole thing.
Yeah, there's a real disconnect. And I think that, when they announced that a professional soccer team is going to come in, from out of country, and then teams will be coming into the state from either out of state or out of country. And then, like you said, these summer leagues that have gone through with lacrosse, and these individualized leagues that are continuing. I mean, think about it from this perspective. And I talked to a few players about this. If you have a little brother that is playing peewee football, they're playing right now. Okay. If your favorite college team is going to be playing right now, your favorite professional athlete is going to be playing right now, there's one category that's left out, and that's high school football. And especially, like you mentioned, with some of the lowest metrics in the country, the fact that we can't not only get the players back in the field, but get a straight answer, that's where the issue lies. And if we could get a straight answer, then I think that would ease a lot of people's frustrations on this.
No, I do wonder, though, the people that, all of us want an answer, but I wonder if the reason why they haven't given an answer is because one of two things. Either A, they don't have an answer and they're just making it up as we go, which I highly doubt that, because they're a lot smarter than that. Or two, the answer would sabotage something much larger than I think people even could fathom.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, and it's not only going to be football. I mean, we're a couple of months away from winter sports season, when you have, basketball, which is indoors, you have ice hockey, which is, pretty much full contact, and you have wrestling. So if I'm even a player or a wrestler that plays, in winter sports, I'm reaching out, and I'm a little concerned that my season isn't going to be able to go forward. And a lot of football players are wrestlers as well, so they could end up losing 2 seasons. Like you said, I think it's more of kicking the can down the road, that they're maybe hoping something changes, or that people just kind of forget about it. But that was one of the cool things about seeing the players and the coaches that go out to these rallies, whether it was the one in Cheshire outside the CIAC headquarters or the 2 in Hartford, is that it showed that these players really care and that they were for a cause. And I think that I hope that they keep it going. I've heard a couple of the coaches say, hey, we're only at halftime. Let's keep it going. And I really hope they do, because really they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to make the change if they keep the pressure on, at least getting straight answers from the Department of Health.
I don't know if you saw, but I saw a couple people in the media in Connecticut, when the rally first happened, the one in Hartford, not West Hartford, but the one at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody, I think it was Mark Zini, said something about how they weren't wearing masks. But all the video I saw was kids, parents, but mainly kids, because that's who was there. They were wearing masks. So what I don't understand is, why does it seem to me, and I'm even a part of the media, and I kind of scratch my head like, why are you so against this? I mean, they're doing everything correctly. They're wearing masks. Are they social distancing? No, but every protest that I've seen away far beyond sports, I have not seen social distancing. So
Mm-hmm.
why is it that they almost seem like they're against it, and they're making sure like, hey, I'm against this, so here's why?
Yeah, I mean, I think that starts at a national media level as well. There's been a lot of people that make their living covering sports, and they're like self-sabotaging their job in a way, which I don't understand. Look, I get it if it's a safety concern. I get it if you think there's a safety concern. But a lot of these things, like the Big Ten coming back to play football, or professional athletes coming back, these are the people that are affected by this are the people that are involved in it, the coaches and the teams and all that. To try to take that from somebody because you've either had an agenda in the beginning, it doesn't seem right to me. And as part of the media, obviously we want to cover just exactly what's happening, but we have opinions just like everybody else.
Exactly.
And so a lot of times, I'll try to, keep my mouth shut for a better term, but then I see the other sides of it. They're saying, do not play sports, don't do this. And I think, well, gosh, we have high school football going all around the country. We have some of the lowest metrics. How do we explain to these athletes that when they see, and adults can sometimes be the biggest hypocrites of this, and maybe I am sometimes too, but they see their parents going out and eating at restaurants. They see their parents traveling. They see they're asked to go back to school. And then they say, well, wait a minute, don't play football because that's high risk. To me, that's hypocritical. And I know that not everyone is hypocritical in that respect, but it seems awfully hypocritical that we're telling these football players. And here's the other issue about it, Chris, is if you don't have football, does the Department of Health or the CIAC, do they think that these players, once they're done with school and maybe they get to do their football conditioning, do they think they're going to go home and lock themselves in the basement? They're not going to do that. What they're going to do, and it's exactly what I would do as a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid. I'd get my friends together and I'd go down to the field and we'd play football, and it'd probably be tackle football. And here's the thing. We won't have pads on. We won't be under the supervision of our coaches. We won't have the same rules and guidelines that we would under our athletic, department. And so it's a lot more riskier. These kids are going to find a way to compete. And whether we have football or not, quite frankly, they're going to go out and do it.
Yeah, no, they will. And again, I think I'm all for everybody having an opinion. Anytime anybody wants to come on this show, I will never argue. I've never been like that. I don't go into any sort of room thinking that I'm the smartest person. I always think I'm the dumbest because I can always learn something. But reading the articles I have over the last month and a half when the protests started and the players started to finally, in some ways, speak, and because they wanted their voices to be heard. I will not say this person's name because I don't want them to think I'm calling them out. I'm not. But they did do an article, I think it was about a week ago, week and a half, where they basically said that the players needed to sit down and shut up, that they did not deserve an answer. They, if they're told no, it's no. But at the same time, and I even texted this to a coach because I sent him the article and I said, well, wait a second. If you're telling them no to not get an answer, what happens if you got fired from your job and you said, I want an answer, and all they said was, no, we don't want to give you one? Would you be okay with that? I'm sure his answer would be, well, no. Then, okay, well, now you can see what these kids are thinking because they're being told no without an answer. It doesn't make any sense. I don't, it almost feels like to me, well, get off my lawn. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like that.
Well, and I give the kids a lot of credit that I've spoken to, and even the coaches. They were more than willing to say, you can move it to spring as long as we have a definite answer that we can play in the spring, right? So now, obviously, we don't know what the metrics are going to be in spring, but the fact that you can move the season. Now, for me, I think football should be played in the fall, and I think the metrics say we should play in the fall. But yeah, I think that for people to have an opinion on something that really doesn't affect them, so they're trying to take something from somebody, I have a little bit of an issue with that. I do, because if we all have to make our own decisions in life, right? And we all assume some risk. I work a couple of jobs, so I'm out all the time. So we all assume some risk. So like you said, if I was told no, I would ask for a reason. And if I didn't get an adequate answer, I would try to find a reason. So that's exactly what these kids are trying to do. And I don't think they should accept no, because being told to go to school but not play football, you're sending a bit of a mixed message.
And like you said, and we both have said actually, that there's other sports being played. I mean, I played soccer up until college. Last time I checked, I was always, and I played left back, I was always close to somebody. I was always, there's contact. There's contact in soccer. So why is that considered a moderate sport, even if they're taking away like corner kicks and a couple of these things, which I think are partially laughable if you ask me,
Sure.
too. But like, I just don't understand why that's considered moderate when the same, like all it takes is what, 3 or 4 seconds for this virus to be able to transmit from one person to another via droplets. Well, cross country is the same way. And then and you can't say, and I'm not saying you specifically, but I've heard people say, oh, well, they're outside. Last time I checked, football's outside too.
Yeah. Soccer's a good point. Because, we had a lot of discussion about volleyball, being indoors and that being a moderate risk and now having to wear masks. But soccer is a good point. I mean, you played soccer, so I didn't play soccer, but I've covered a lot of soccer games. Yeah, it can get pretty physical at times. And the object is, you're chasing a ball around. And so there's a lot of people in the same vicinity at one time. So for sure, I mean, again, I think we're picking and choosing, and football seems to be that gold standard that everyone's going by. Everything kind of goes by football. I mean, a lot of people disagree with me on this as well. I think that college football should be being played and college athletics should be being played in the state of Connecticut right now. I think even the state schools like CCSU and Southern Connecticut, where I went to school, I think we should be playing sports there as well. I think the metrics are there. And the argument is that these athletes now aren't necessarily around their teams as much and they're going out, but if they were within a team atmosphere, at least they'd be getting tested all the time. And so, if you ask me, we should really, athletics is a huge part of any schooling. And I think it's really important. So if you're going to send the kids back, the athletics should come with it.
It's huge. I mean, I don't think people understand what the athletics and being able to have that sense of camaraderie, the teamwork, the mentors, the father figures with the coaches because of the parent, lack of parents or maybe not the family support that they could have on the football field or any field in general. It's a shame. And I think another thing too is, again, this is just my assumption, but looking at where we are right now in 2020 and the way, seeing how much politics is involved, I had a parent whose son I had on my podcast send me 2 pictures. All right. Stay with me here. All right. So
Okay.
Clinton Trump, 2016, correct? If you look at the states that Trump won in 2016, those states are playing football either this fall or at least have a plan to play in the spring, one way or another. You look at the states that Clinton won, they are not playing football at all. So I'm not trying to say one thing or another. I'm just throwing out a fact and letting somebody judge from there. It's a little weird.
Yeah, you'd hope that football isn't being used as a political pawn. You'd hope that it wouldn't, because to me, I'm a sports guy. So I'm sports basically 24/7. So I would hope that wasn't the case, but I've seen the same map that you saw, and it is daunting. You look at it and you go, wow, it kind of takes it back a little bit. But again, you would hope that wasn't the case. But if state officials are using either football or any sport as a political piece, then that's absolutely wrong. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted a straight answer from the Department of Health, because there's another aspect of it. I mean, there's the mental health aspect of it as well. I mean, there was the study that the CDC did where A year ago, or it was like a year and a half ago, there was 1 in 10 people between the age of 18 and 24 had thought of suicide, and now it's up to 1 in 4. NPR did an article about how just in general, the general population, now a fourth of the people think they're depressed, which is 3 times higher than any other year. So there is a big part of it, the mental health part of it. And again, I don't pretend to be a health expert, but if you're going to put it all together, that's got to be part of the equation, right?
No, it has to be. I mean, I think you've seen since you started following me on Twitter that I've pushed now for weeks the mental health aspect about, all right, you want to cancel football, you want to do this, fine. You know what? One of these days, I think people will, either rightly so or not, whatever, they'll get it. But the effect that this has had on the mental health, the psychological damage by players and coaches. I mean, I had a coach on when I was doing a couple of my panels who told me he slept 4 hours in like 3 days. That's not good. And I just think
No.
there needs to be, and it may be too late for this, and I would gladly work with the CIAC if they would ever allow me to and listen. I would love to be able to see a plan for these players and coaches to have some sort of class or just something to help, because both sides, they need help. Like we talked about, they look defeated. They need help.
Well, and part of the issue talking to several coaches that I have is that from the beginning, now, if I'm the CIAC, if I'm the Department of Health and I'm getting asked a question about high school sports, I'm going to look for guidance. And the way I'm going to look for guidance is by going to the source, right? So the source would be, you're going to go to your coaches, you're going to go to your athletic directors, and you might even include team captains. But from what I understand, the coaches were not part of this equation. They weren't consulted with a lot of these issues. Athletic directors, a lot of the times weren't. They were told after the fact. But these meetings that they had, and I know CIAC had their own doctors that they brought in to talk to the Department of Health. But to me, you're leaving out, it's like trying to build a house and then you don't want the contractor there. You just want everyone else there individually. And you're trying to make a decision on how to build this house, but you're not getting it directly from the source. Because if we're talking about safety concerns, and I talked to Coach McKinnon from Wethersfield about this, there's a whole other side of football that's the safety part of it. It's when you're on the field, it's a violent game, right? So that's got to be taken into account as well as the safety issues of COVID. And these coaches can offer a lot, and to your point, I feel bad for a lot of these coaches because, as you know, this isn't like SEC football where these coaches are getting paid millions of dollars. They're working long hours and they're having to put in extra time with all these cohorts and team meetings and keeping players separated. And it's a drain on them. It's not only a drain on the players, but these coaches that, this is basically their second income. A lot of them are teachers, and they're having to put in a lot more time with these sports because of this than they would, if we just let the season go.
That's the other part too. A lot of them, or if not all of them, are teachers in some way. I mean, my girlfriend's a teacher. Your wife is a teacher as well. So, I mean, I'm sure she tells you how it is at, I think, South Windsor, you said, correct?
Correct.
So, and my girlfriend teaches in Waterbury, and she tells me every day, and it's, I think these teachers deserve so much more credit than what they're getting. And I understand parents are stressed because of what's going on. They're doing everything they can to be able to help the youth of whatever age up until even high school. And I think the coaches deserve the same sort of support. Teachers, obviously, different category. I just wanted to kind of compare it because I just think that with what's going on, these coaches are having to worry about, was there even going to be a season? And now you have the fact of, well, they're trying to prepare for classes as well. And it's just so much is going on.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle for them. And in a way, and I've kind of neglected this as well because of everything that's going on with football, is, there are seasons to prepare for these other sports they're going to be playing with, cross country and swimming and volleyball and soccer. So I feel bad in a respect for these coaches as well, because they're having to go through the same thing. But the problem with football is football players have already put in all this time. The coaches have already put on all this time, and now the rug's getting yanked from underneath them. And so I think that's the biggest sting for everybody.
No, it's been one of those situations where constant, we've talked about it, weeks, months of play, no play. And again, it's like the decision came, we think, but it left us, I think, I don't know about you, but it left me more questions than answers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amount of reading I've done on it in the last, you know, couple of weeks, especially the last 48 hours, because to be honest, I'm thinking club football. We didn't have that when I grew up. I know Connecticut didn't have it. I'm looking around the country to see about club football, and it just leaves a lot of unanswered questions. And these coaches that have already dealt with a lot now have to figure out and balance this. I think it's ultimately going to take its toll, where a lot of schools are just going to hope for the spring. But my fear is if we don't get a definitive answer from the Department of Health, that we're going to be having the same conversation come March or come April, because I don't know how the metrics are going to change. And like you said, if the answer you're looking for is that we have 0 cases, then we should have never opened schools, and we should have never, even talked about bringing sports back, because 0 really isn't a number that's achievable, especially right now.
No, it's not. And I just don't, I can only imagine, and I truly hope this, and I tweeted this out yesterday. I hope they have an answer for winter sports soon, because, only because I don't know if you can PO, I mean, you basically already got coaches from the fall angry. Football and just everyone alike, more so football. But now you add in potentially basketball and wrestling and the other sports. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if they can handle, and I'm talking about the players, because a lot of football players also play basketball, and just in general, I don't know if they can do that again. I just don't. I just can't see it.
Yeah, and the more that they go through it, the more it affects your mental health. I know, as thinking back on my own self playing sports in high school, if I kept having sports canceled and yanked out from under me, it would have been tough. I mean, being a high schooler in general is tough. And when you add on to that the stress of what's happened in the last year, and now their sports might be getting pushed or canceled, it's a lot to deal with. I know it's a lot to deal with as an adult, for you and I, for working. I can't imagine what it's like to be a kid nowadays. And I've kind of turned into more of an advocate for the players and the coaches that maybe I was before, but because I kind of feel their pain in all of this. And I know that if I would have gone through this, it would have been difficult. And yeah, it's easy for somebody to write and say, you should accept a no, but unless you're in that situation, you don't know how you'd react.
Exactly. And again, I'm not trying to call out any writers or media people. I respect everybody alike. I don't want to start a feud. But again, that person gave their opinion. I think I'm allowed to give mine, just like you're allowed to give yours, and I think this is another thing too. I want to, get our opinions on. I want to get yours specifically. This this AAU football / private football league that Fairfield County is trying to make. And I've always said, anytime you hear Fairfield County, just add $ after county, because it's money. They have money,
Mm-hmm.
but they take football very serious. And
Mm-hmm.
there are concerns amongst coaches that I have talked to, that both the money aspect, but also the fact that this seems like a short-term potential win, but a long-term loss, where 2 coaches in particular have told me, and I quote, "This could kill high school football."
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of got my ears perked up when I heard that.
Yeah, I think that the reason AAU can work in certain sports like basketball, or you can have travel teams in soccer, and that is because you can play those year round. But when you start putting these club teams together for football, what you'll do, in my opinion, and obviously a place like, if you go out to Waterbury or Bridgeport, they're not going to have the same funds that they would up in Fairfield County. So they might not be able to put a league together like Fairfield County can. And it would, to me, it's almost like creating these dynasties. And it's similar to, I think about it as pickup basketball games at the gym. So you go there and the 5 best guys try to get all on one team. And I've always laughed at that, because I think, well, don't they want the competition? Don't they want to divvy it up a little bit? We don't want to create, the Heat, or some sort of dynasty right now. So if you have this at these leagues where you have all these dominant teams and all this money pumped into one program, it definitely separates the haves from the have-nots. And that coach that you talked to could absolutely be right, because people won't be able to compete. If you're able to basically bring people into your program and create this super team and dump a bunch of money into it, that's not really how high school athletics is supposed to be.
I was kind of thinking about this as I was preparing for the interview today while I was at work. My mind is crazy. Probably stay out of it. It's a little weird, but
Sure.
I was thinking that what is going to stop, let's say, for example, this league ends up being more than just a one season, one time thing. And it even happens during the high school season. Let's just say. Now, what's going to stop a kid if he's not playing in high school for various reasons? He's not starting or whatever. Maybe he's not good enough at the high school level. What's going to stop him or her, respectfully, if they're like, well, I can just pay this amount of money and go play for this league? But the player may not be prepared, or they're told all this stuff just to get money out of them. I mean, I've seen it both when I played baseball. I've heard stories in basketball. I think that's the concern as well.
Yeah, and to me, there's a beauty to high school athletics and how it's played. It's really the purest form of athletics. You have these teams, and it's the reason why I don't cover private schools as much as I would high schools, is because to me, when you have a town and they kind of, all these kids grow up together, like Rocky Hill is a great example. These kids grow up together they're playing t-ball together from when they're 2 years old, basically. And you grow up and you go through this system, and that it's either a Friday night and you're out there playing football or soccer, or the gym is packed and it's with all local people. There's a beauty to it, and there's an ebb and flow to it. Like you might be good for a couple of years, but then you have a big graduating class and you're down for a little bit. But when you start dumping money into a program and people start moving to different towns just to be part of that program, and yeah, maybe I can pay money and I can get on this super team, it takes that talent away. It's similar to me what happened in the NBA. So I think it really dilutes it. Like, you don't get that same high school atmosphere where all these guys grew up together. And I grew up in a small town as well, and we all grew up together. We were playing football together since Pee Wee football. And we were able to rise up and take this small school to a state championship game. And there was a camaraderie to it that you wouldn't get when you create an AAU or a club team.
It's, to me, it's almost like how the NCAA is now moving, because how we're seeing where the athletes are being paid, and the just all of that behind the scenes stuff that we don't typically see reported. I almost feel like it's starting to slowly move. And I understand maybe a lot of us are kind of maybe overemphasizing, potentially this could be just, again, a one-time thing. It's hard to say. It hasn't even been made yet. And but again, I can understand why the questions are being asked, just because we see this in basketball, and we see at least you've covered basketball games. I've covered and broadcasted basketball games. I see what it's done to teams and how they play. I can only imagine what's going to happen, because this has never happened as far as having football where it's AAU or a private league, as far as the high school level is concerned.
Yeah, and it creates another challenge for coaches as well, because and I see it in basketball. If you have a player that plays AAU and he's either paying to play for the team, or the team asks him to come play for them, and his coach thinks he's the greatest thing ever, but then if you go back and you play for your high school, your coach has a different set of standards, and so that can cause a lot of riff, and I would hate to see that happen to high school football. But it is difficult, like you said, to put that toothpaste back in the tube once we go down that road and we start having club football, because a lot of people might shift to that because they can get better notoriety for colleges, which more power to them. But high school football, if that's the case, will suffer in the long run, I believe.
Once Pandora's box is open, it's very difficult to close. So if this does happen, I almost feel like, and I want, because I'm not trying to say this because I don't want to see the high school kids have a season. I don't want to see them not play their final season or have a chance for college. I am not saying that. But the concerns that I have are not so much about the players playing or having an opportunity. I'm not trying to kill any dreams. I am just looking out because, again, I have seen people lie to kids' faces and say, oh, you're definitely going to get this amount of offers, and they get nothing. They pay all this money. I've seen it at showcases. They pay so much money and nothing comes out of it. And I just worry that because the time we're in right now, these players would literally do anything just to step on a football field. And I almost feel like there's blood in the water and the sharks smell it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of it is that the haves in this, the really good players, are going to be able to play these club leagues. But part of playing high school, athletics is the enjoyment of it. And some kids just go out to sports to play sports, which is great. And they might be the 12th men on the basketball team, or they might be a special teamer in football. But their ability to play sports is really important, and it's more important than trying to showcase everyone or everyone trying to get to the next level. That's part of it, but there's also a large majority of kids that are on the team that aren't the superstars. And again, once you start taking away leagues, or you take away seasons, and you create these kind of pods elsewhere, those kids will get left out, and that would be concerning for me, because a lot of kids would probably play less sports because of either the intimidation factor, or they don't know a lot of these kids. These kids that play in high school right now, a lot of them play because their friends play. And I think that that's great. But if they started playing for different towns, or they started playing for different leagues, it would eliminate a lot of these fringe players.
Josh, we're just about running out of time, but I really do appreciate you coming on. I could talk with you forever, but I don't want to keep you. I'm sure your wife is saying, come on, come back. We got to watch a movie or something. But, I really do appreciate you coming on. Keep up the good work. I love the content. I'll keep reading it. And hopefully you can come back on in the near future. I really would love to have you back on.
Yeah, and best of luck to you. And anytime you need me, like I said, I love what you're doing here, and keep churning these podcasts out. I'll keep watching them.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Now, wrap things up in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. And remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on a journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody, and be well.